You're on, sir.
Good afternoon, all. Welcome to the third one in our Beyond the Classroom Financial Literacy series. If you joined us in the previous ones, you'd have had Dr. Blackburn as he spoke on behavioral economics, the psychology of money, so to speak. Then Dr. Bice, and I'm doing this one on financial empowerment. And the last one in the series is going to be done by Dr. Yassi as he looked at investments, etc. So I'm happy you could join us. If you're online, I'm happy you're here. Just going to be trying to be as practical as I can possibly be, right? Going to share a bit of insights. Some of it will be about my work as well. And some of it is from some research and some is from what's actually happening out there, outside of academia, but things that affect our lives. And it's all about financial empowerment, right? So we want to understand today how financial literacy leads to greater personal and professional opportunities. We also want to learn how to use money as a tool for empowerment rather than as a source of stress, and just try to develop the mindset needed to achieve financial independence and security. An interesting survey. I'm not sure how many of us are familiar with Ramsey's Solutions. His organization gives advice on managing debt, making investments, etc. And the organization did an interesting survey of 10,000 millionaires. And this is what they found. 79% of those millionaires had no inheritance. Only 21% of them had some kind of inheritance. So 79% of them had no inheritance whatsoever. They acquired their wealth through work, investments, and using that slowly but surely principle, so to speak. They were very frugal, lived below their means, and as we go through this seminar, this presentation today, you'll pick up a few things that I think may actually help us, both as students and as adults who are already managing our affairs. So he found that 79% of this 10,000 had no inheritance, yet they attained the millionaire status. More interestingly, he found that the top 5 careers of these respondents were engineers, accountants, and would you believe it, teachers, people who work in management, and attorneys. And interestingly, of that top 5, teachers weren't, we all know, teachers aren't the best paid. We aren't making those $1 million salaries. But one of the things that came out of it was that we work with lesson plans. So we're structured, right? We always begin at the end. What do we want to achieve? What do we want our students to achieve? And that's how we design our classes. That's how we design our courses. So there is a structured plan, so to speak. And it's the same principle we apply to our lives. Now, the power of financial literacy is this. Knowledge equals power. So understanding finances, it opens doors to career growth, investments, and entrepreneurship, right? It helps you to break that cycle because financial knowledge is that primary exit ramp from the paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. It provides an opportunity cost perspective where literacy isn't just about saving. It's about having the capital to say yes when a life-changing opportunity appears. And one of the questions that always bothers me is that, we spent a large proportion of our early years in education. We elementary school, middle school, high school, and then we get our degrees. But throughout those course of study, none of us are really taught how to manage money, how to make investment. It's expected that we pick it up along the way. And it really doesn't work like that, right? It really does not work like that. So research has shown that the financial literacy, it's not just about managing the financial capability, but it's more of a multifaceted construct that involves knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors. Students' knowledge of financial management and how money works will most likely influence their attitudes and, by extension, their behaviors towards money management. And this excerpt is actually out of a research study that Dr. Bias, Dr. Miller, and myself are actually conducting now on students at the university here. We find what the research has shown so far from prior research is that students with positive financial attitudes, they experience and display reduced levels of anxiety and stress, right? Than students who indicate lower financial attitudes. So this reflects how psychological factors play a significant role in a student's money management, right? And one of the last things you want is to be worrying about your finances or money while you are doing your study. So how does financial literacy influence college students' perceptions of student loan debt and their financial decisions? This is what we found. Students with higher levels of financial literacy are more likely to view their student loan debt as a strategic tool, that an investment in their future, and are less concerned about their ability to repay their loans. Low literacy and negativity. Students with lower levels of financial literacy are more likely to perceive their debt as a psychological burden or crushing debt. Importantly, higher financial literacy leads to better financing decisions. Conversely, low literacy students are more likely to make counterproductive decisions, such as failing to maximize aid or underestimating future payments. So it's really important that our students are really financially literate. So the School of Business, we are doing this research, and it is a study of the relationship between financial knowledge, attitudes and beliefs that influence saving, debt, and investing among college students. Now, these are our research questions in a nutshell. Do positive intentions to save and invest correlate with increased financial knowledge? In what ways do subjective norms, specifically peer and family influence, vary between first generation and continuing generation students? And to what degree does perceived behavioral control, self-efficacy that is, influence the disparity between knowledge and action? And I have a QR code there. If you want to scan the QR code, I would love for you to take the survey, because we want to look at these results and see what they are really telling us, right? So you think of financial empowerment and you think of being relaxed. You think of being able to go on vacations. You think of being able to purchase whatever you want. You think of being able to live in the area that you want to live in. And personally, whenever I get a chance to, I'll go to South Florida and I'll just go to the beach and take a view of the beach. And this is one of those occasions when I just wanted to relax. And this was one of the skyline of the Fort Lauderdale beach. And it really helps you to put things in perspective. So here are two scenarios. The tale of two careers. Scenario one, Alex lacks financial literacy. So he views his salary as spending power. He lives in a high-rank district. He finances a new car and has no emergency fund and cannot accept a startup offer. Jordan, she's financially literate, views the salary as leverage, lives modestly, automates savings, and understands compound interest, has the freedom fund to accept the startup offer. Same salary, but different perspective, different mindset. And I'm going to interject here a little. After high school, I went to work in banking. And I distinctly remembered my first paycheck. And this was in Jamaica. My first paycheck, $1,953. At the time, the conversion rate to US was $7.18. This was 1990, March 1990. That was 242 US dollars. I wasn't doing any US conversion, but I was like, wow, this is a lot of money. And I spent 6 years in banking before I went on to do a first degree. And this is what happened while I was doing my degree. I became financially literate, started doing courses, introduction, principles of microeconomics, financial accounting, macroeconomics. And in doing these courses, I learned about personal financial management. And while doing these courses, I actually crafted this plan in my head of what I want to have happen after I completed my degree. And I thought that I wanted to get a job where they gave me a car to drive and where they pay for my accommodation. And I planned it out, made the right networks, the right connections. And within 6 weeks after doing my final exam, I actually got a job where on the first day, they gave me a key to a car. And then within another 4 weeks, the portfolio that they asked me to manage ensured that they would pay for my accommodation for the next 2 years. And I was able to save. I was able to put money aside. I did not know when I got paid. It didn't matter to me when I got paid because they gave me an expense account, pay for my lunch, pay for my boarding, uniform, pay for the maintenance of the vehicle, pay for petrol, etc. And it worked well. But the thing is that I planned it. I thought about it. I conceptualized it and I planned it and it was executed. And that allowed me to, just as Jordan here, had some savings, right? So that it allowed you to be able to leverage what you had. Years later, an opportunity came up and I was able to invest in a business at the time. And that's because sometimes we hear of persons who have done things or we say, this is what you should do. But a lot of times we don't get a personal example of it, right? And what I'm going to be bringing to you throughout this is some of those. I'll just introduce it to some of those things that I have walked through. So the tale of two careers. You want to be like Jordan. You want to view your salary as leverage, live modestly, automate savings, understand compound interest, and have that freedom fund, so to speak, to accept whatever startup offer. So you'll be able to, with financial empowerment, you're able to leverage your financial knowledge to personal wealth and invest in opportunities, right? You create achievable milestones that lead to a more empowered life. And the financial goals shouldn't be so much, it should be really about the freedom that they provide. And you may be asking yourself as students, but I'm just in college. It's not time for me to be thinking about that yet. Well, what I'm saying to you, that this is now the time for you to think about it. This is the time for you to craft those plans, right? You're here to get a degree, but at the same time, the intention for us here is that when you complete your degree, you have a pretty good understanding of what you're going to do with it and how you are going to plan your life. It's not just about your career, but what you want your career to do for you and how you're going to leverage that as right? So you want to have a mindset shift. You want to focus on wealth building and long-term security over short-term status symbols. And one of the challenges we have is we have access to a lot of social media appearances, a lot of influences. The thing about social media is what you see is not necessarily what is. A lot of these things are curated, a lot of these things are staged, right? Don't think of the short-term status. I want you to have that long-term outlook. It involves taking control, shifting from reactive spending to proactive decisions. The question you may be asking is, how am I going to be able to do that? I'm on financial aid. We'll get to that in a bit. And I want you to have scalable independence, which is achievable at different income levels through disciplined allocation, right? And you are doing a particular degree because you have a passion for it, but also want to be paid for it, right? And at some point, whatever the entry salary is, the expectation is that it's going to increase, and you have to have that mindset for the varying salary levels as well. So what is one financial decision you can make today that moves you towards freedom? And let's look at I think there's some in there, Stephen.
Yeah, I think Ron Smith may be trying to ask a question. Ron, if you could type it into the chat, I can pass it along to Dr. Davis.
Sure. So what is one financial decision you can make today that moves you towards freedom, right? Let's look at a few things that we can do as students and as individuals that are really practical. First thing, understand how money and credit works. Your credit score, it's a numerical representation of your reliability as a borrower. And why do I need a credit score? Why do I have to get involved in that? Well, that's how the system operates. It is the grade, quote unquote grade, you get these grades in classes. It is the grade you receive for how you handle borrowed money. But you need to understand it, understand how it works, understand what makes it up, right? So after this session today, I'm just going to give you a synopsis of this. After this session today, I want you to spend some time researching and understanding how the credit score and the credit system works, right? So there are 5 components to your credit score. The payment history represents 35% of that component. It's the single most important factor. Do you pay on time every time? 30% of the score is made up of the amount you owe. How much of your available credit are you using? That's a credit utilization. In other words, if you have a credit card, $1,000 is the limit. They expect, or they want to see, credit agencies would love to see that your utilization is below 30%. In other words, 30%, that's $300. If it is that you go over that, you ensure that you pay it by the end of the month, right? So the credit utilization is very important. The length of credit history. How long have your accounts been open? And you may be asking yourself the question, well, I'm just going to be starting to work. I don't have any credit. But I'm going to share something that will help you, that by the time you are ready to access credit, and you're asking, oh, but why do I need credit? Well, you're going to need a mortgage at some point, right? The credit mix, do you have different types of credit? For example, student loans and credit cards. And new credit represents 10%. How many accounts have you applied for recently? So the first thing I want you to do is to understand how credit works. Understand how the credit scoring system works. Do not wait until after you complete your degree that you're going to try to figure this out. I want you to figure this out before you get to the end of your degree. Now, how do you leverage your student loans? Right? And I mean, the student loan is not taken into consideration for your credit score, but this is what happens. This is how it affects you. Because payment history is 35% of your score, every on-time student loan payment acts as a brick in a solid financial foundation, right? So every on-time payment you make says something to creditors of your trustworthiness and your reliability to make your payments on time. Building length of credit history. Since student loans often last 10 plus years, they provide a long-term boost to the age of your credit profile, making you look more stable to future mortgage or auto lenders. And you're thinking that 10 years is a long time. No, it's not. 10 years, maybe you're just getting to figure out what your career really should be after you complete your degree. You'll be surprised, right? Diversifying your mix. Having a term loan, like a student loan, alongside a revolving account, like a credit card, it improves your credit mix, providing you can handle different financial structures. So this is something I wanted to keep in mind when you begin paying back those student loans. Set your student loan to auto pay for at least the minimum amount. At least the minimum amount. Set it to auto pay. If you get a student credit card, while here, never let the balance exceed 30% of your limit. If you do, try to pay it down quickly. And of course, each year, you can use annualcreditreport.com to check for errors once a year. Why? Literacy, financial literacy, includes defending your reputation from inaccuracies that could cost you thousands in higher interest rates later, right? So I want you to have this perspective. Your student loan is more than a bill. It is your first major partnership with the financial world. Think about that. It's your first major partnership with the financial world. So you treat it with respect today, and it will pay you back in lower interest rates on your first home or business loan tomorrow. I want you to think of it as an investment. Think of it as an investment. Any business that you go to invest in, whatever borrowed funds you use, it's going to be invested in the business. But remember that there is going to be a time when the business may not be generating enough cash flow as yet, right? And that's a principle that governs your financial aid as well. There is going to be a period of time. You're in school now when you are not generating that cash flow as yet. When you complete your degree and begin working, that's when the focus begins. But I want you to have that perspective, that knowledge of it before you get there. Now, while you're in college, okay, there's financial aid, but there is also access to grants and scholarships. Whether you're a first-year college student, second year, third year, there's access to grants and scholarship. A colleague of mine shared this with me. Scholarship.com. Go to it. What it does, it looks at your profile and it matches you with scholarships and grants that are out there for the different levels that you're at. And it just as how you study and you spend some time on your assignments, spend some time on this. You'll be amazed at the kind of grants and scholarships that you can get throughout college. Throughout my first degree year, I guess I was fortunate in that my mother was into insurance and she encouraged me, hey, take out an investment policy. And I was very young and I was like, why do I need insurance now? It's a lot of questions like, nothing's going to happen to me. Why do I need insurance now? Well, as you know, our mothers are, they are very insistent and I did. So when I went in to do my first degree, it was actually what was accumulated on the policy that I actually used in order to get into university. But I had a colleague throughout the university years, and he was always applying for these grants and scholarships, and always successful in getting these. So that by the time he finished his degree, he did not have to take as much financial aid as others had, right? So don't be afraid to research what is out there. Don't just depend on your aid, etc. Be creative. So that's the second thing I want you to do. Also, Here's something to think about. That subscription trick, right? And you know, some of us as adults, like I'm guilty, I have subscriptions and I forget about them. I don't remember these subscriptions. And they're over time. But this is what I wanted. Here's a strategy for the subscription trick. Put one small recurring monthly subscription, like a Netflix, on a student credit card, and set that card to auto pay the full statement balance from your checking account every month, right? What will happen is you will build a consistent 100% on-time payment. And you're going to be doing this so that by the time you complete your degree, this is what happened. You start this process 1 to 2 years before you graduate. By the time you need to rent an apartment or buy a car for your first professional job, you will have an established reputation that qualifies you for the best rates. So you're not going to be waiting until the end of your degree before you put these things in place, right? You begin actioning them while you are doing your degree, right? So that's a subscription trick. Think about it. Now, when you get beyond your degree, and even while you're here, try to develop this concept of having what I want to call a freedom fund. What's a freedom fund? The goal is to save 6 months of living expenses. And it's difficult. The research has shown that there are a lot of individuals out there, a lot of families, if something happens, they can't access $1,000. They can't access $2,000, right? What I want you to do is to be very deliberate about saving 6 months of living expenses eventually. Take your time. It's not going to happen overnight. This is not a sprint. This is a long-term process. In the bigger scheme of things, if you're going to be living to 90, 100 years old, in the bigger scheme of things, making some sacrifices for a few years, right? It's really not much compared to what you gain later on. So this isn't just savings you're making, but you're really developing or establishing that negotiating power, so to speak, because you're going to have this liquid assets, these cash set aside. So it enables you to leave a toxic environment. Perhaps you may be at a job and you don't like the environment. It's not good for you mentally. And if it is that you have this freedom fund set aside, you can make decisions. You can make decisions without thinking that, oh man, I have to sit and stay in this because, right? You can relocate or you can take a sabbatical, right? So that's what having this kind of fund allows you to do, right? So think about those. Those are three things I just suggested that you could focus on. Now, when you get to that entry-level job, right? Okay, $40,000 you're earning. This is what I want you to do. Focus on aggressive budgeting and upskilling, right? Focus on being frugal, but focus on what can you do to get to a better place in your job. You know, the degree is essential. It's really important that you do your degree. Research out there has shown that persons who have gone ahead and earned their degree have put themselves in a better position financially than those who haven't, right? So at income level $40,000, focus on aggressive budgeting and upskilling. When you get to an income level of 90,000, for example, focus on preventing lifestyle creep and maximizing retirement. And lifestyle creep, if you know what lifestyle creep is the more you earn, you think that you need to buy a more fancier car, you need to move to a bigger apartment, you need to purchase more expensive clothes. You don't want that to happen, right? Act as if you're still at that $40,000 income level. Be frugal for a while, right? And then when you establish that fund, you can make decisions. Prioritize owning time over owning things. Okay? So that's independence at Importantly, here I said focus on budgeting and upskilling, continuous learning. Just understand that financial education is ongoing. Stay curious. Update your knowledge on tax laws, investments, and market trends. And you cannot afford to stop learning about what's happening out there. You cannot afford to take your eyes off tax laws, investments, and market trends. Any of us here have stocks, oil stocks in energy companies? And over the last few weeks, they have gone up by an average of like about 40% or so, like that, right? And it's a long game. It's a long game. One of my kids, he's so interested in the stock market now, but he's just looking at he's so focused on the EV companies, right? The EV companies, and I'm like, well, you know, all of these things are being driven by oil anyway. So maybe you need to look at those. But be knowledgeable about what kind of investments you can make. Look at the market trends, right? And as I said, it's a long game. It's a very, very long game. So ensure that your financial education is a continuous process. And I'm going to put a shameless plug here for two courses that we in the School of Business. Economics of Financial Literacy. I think Dr. Bias teaches that course now. And there's a course that Dr. Yassin is going to be introducing, Personal Wealth Management, where it introduces you to personal financial planning and wealth management, where you'll examine the financial planning process across the individual and household life cycle, right? We can go through our college years without doing any personal financial course. And it's really important that we understand that. If you can recall the chart I showed previously, it had engineers, accountants, teachers who were in the top three. Doctors aren't even in it, right? Because the focus is just so much on earning, but not on managing it. And one of the things of financial empowerment is not just earning a higher salary, or not just earning more, not just increasing the revenue, but knowing how to manage it, right? So these are some of the courses that we offer in the School of Business, that wherever you are, you can sign up for these courses and get some insight how to manage your affairs. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll be presenting our research on the relationship between financial knowledge, attitudes, and beliefs. That will be April 29th in the Math Auditorium. If you have some time, come by and gain some insights into what we found. So those are some of the things that I wanted to share with you. And as a call to action, I want you to identify just one proactive financial decision to make today. Just one proactive financial decision today as a start, right? As just to help you get onto the road of financial empowerment. And that's pretty much it. What I have to deliver today. Stephen, are there any questions in the chat?
Not yet, but I just put out a call for questions and comments. And if anyone wants to share their one proactive financial decision,
right,
they certainly are welcome to do so. We'll give them a minute or two.
Okay, yeah, that's good. And what I'll say is, there is you may be wondering the method to the madness of these four presentations that we're doing this semester. And James spoke about behavioral economics, right? The psychology of money, so to speak. Dr. Bias spent some more time on budgeting and some of the financial traps that we get caught in. And This gives a more practical look on what can help you to get financially empowered. And then the last one in this series is going to be done by Dr. Yassine, where he look at investment tools and things that you can do to really get you more solid. Yes.
We have a question online. How does one go about leveraging their degree for financial advancement within their organization? Direct or indirect approach?
So I think there was a slide I had inside here. Oh, actually took it out. So I had a, and that's something that I thought about. This is something that I'll advise students. Whichever course you're taking, don't just approach the course with the intention to get a good grade. Be a masterpiece in that course. And you're going to find that one of these courses are going to resonate with you. Find a niche. Find a niche. Look for one of those A papers that you did. Is this something that I can improve on? The course that Dr. Blackburn and I teaches, the capstone, the strategic course, he's done a very good job in that course when he designed it, that students can partake in trading stocks. So they are assigned a company and they follow this company throughout the semester. They do a SWOT analysis on the company. They do a PESTLE analysis on the company. They look at come up with a blue ocean strategy for the company, so to speak. And one of the things, like I've said to students, James, is whichever company you're assigned to, think of yourself, which is, I think, how you termed it, think of yourself as the consultant. You're going to be coming up with solutions for this company, right? Can you leverage what you research and recommend for this company over the semester? Can you leverage that to say, hey, I want to work with this company. I'm going to do this thing so well that I can approach them and say, this is what I've researched about you. These are my recommendations, etc. So you're basically becoming a subject matter expert or an expert, so to speak, where that organization or that industry is concerned. And that's how you can leverage whatever you learn in your degree. Don't just stop there, right? Think about how whatever it is that you have researched or written, how can you convert this into publishable material, right? You can easily, do a 20-page ebook and you have something published, right? This you can send to potential employers, or you can have it attached to your profile. And this is what you are the subject matter expert in. So don't think of this as just doing a degree. Think of the knowledge that you're gaining here, and think of how whatever knowledge you gain can be converted into something commercially viable. Because understand this, when you're doing a big business degree, especially, it's not just concepts and theories that we are providing with. We are allowing you to get as close as possible to the action that happens in the organization without you actually being there. So by the time you get there, right, by the time you graduate, because you're going to come through that capstone course, and by the time you graduate, you can actually go into an organization and start helping to make decisions for the organization.
We had one person comment that one thing that came to mind was networking and utilizing relationships made with our professors for connections and references. Had classmates in the past interviewed me hard because of the connections and references made through their professors. And then there was another comment, how students can establish consultancy services to small businesses, as you said.
Right.
Identify that niche.
Right. And that's important, just identifying that niche and presenting yourself as somebody with these experts. And listen, there are a whole lot of influencers out there, financial influencers. There are a whole lot of persons out there who are providing advice who do not have the degree training that you have, right? So when you go through a degree program like this, you are a subject matter expert, right? And what one of the things that from the Ramsey survey, what they found is that of that 10,000 millionaire list who they surveyed, I think, if my memory serves me right, 52% of them had their degrees, and then another 42% or 41% of them had their graduate degrees, their master's degree. So it's a long game. As I said, it is a long game. So there is so much value in what you're doing, in the degree that you're doing. It's just a matter of knowing how to leverage it and just understanding that this is a long game, right? Understanding that your student loan, for example, is not a burden, but an investment. Just as so if you're going to be investing in a business, that debt that you took on is not a burden, but it's seed for the business itself.